Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another APJ office hours. Go ahead and share my screen here on the Zoom. It's just me here today. We're actually joined by AJ and Reem in Zoom chat. We just started clicking off the Twitch. Got to ignore the errors here. As part of our efficient testing, we broke something in our lab, so we're working our way through that. I really didn't have anything too formal today. I guess as per every day, it seems on the office hours, because I really do want to keep it very open format, very open to anybody that has any questions or concerns. So, if you are in the Zoom chat, feel free to put questions in the Q&A or suggestions or anything you kind of want to see. If you're watching via Twitch, feel free to put it in the chat. Technically speaking, it doesn't even have to be VMware Cloud related. If you have other questions, there's a lot of things I can talk about and love to talk about. So, one of the things I will talk about at the top here while we kind of get people joining in, because I am always a big fan of starting on time. I try to be respectful of everybody's time. So I start right at 4 o'clock, but people got to filter in. One of the things I want to talk about was so next week is going to be Dell Technology World. So for those that are somehow not aware of this, Dell is the parent company of VMware. So we were owned by EMC. Then EMC was acquired by Dell, and us as part of the deal. So Dell EMC Tech World, which is going on next week in Vegas, we have a lot of presence there. So I will be there. So anybody that is going to be there, I guess it might be somewhat far for those in the APJ realm to make, but I know that there's probably going to be some of you heading out that way because they only do the one event a year in Vegas. For sure, drop by. So I'll be in our booth called Cloud City booth. It's actually going to be separate from the VMware booth. It's going to be me and some other people from the cloud team, experts. That are going to be available for you to just come up and talk to. So definitely, if you're there, definitely come by. At least say hi. Have a chat. We'll have some demos going. There's going to be a fairly big announcement there next week. I'll tease to everybody out there that we're going to have, again, like I said, quite a presence, quite some cool joint announcements with our Dell and EMC brethren, family, however you want to call it. So I think there's going to be some more fun stuff to talk about, I guess, the week after that one. I can actually divulge a lot of this information more in its public state, but definitely something to be aware of. So like I said, pay attention to the tech news, and Dell Technology World will definitely have some fun announcements that will really bring some cool solutions out there. And like I said, I'll be there. So that means I also won't be hosting this next week. I'll be looking for someone to fill in for this next week. I might be able to make it just depending on times. As another heads up, we're probably going to be shifting this time an hour later and potentially 2 hours later. So it might be good to get some feedback from those across other regions so that we can get more into the workday in India for those that want to attend from that part of the APJ region and from Japan as well. So I kind of want to maybe shift it a little bit to make it more accessible for everybody in APJ, and then hopefully it doesn't make it too late in Sydney or Australia. I think that'll probably push it to, if we do 2 hours, it'll be noon your time. That might be a good time so you can kind of participate over lunch, get some lunchtime entertainment, which I think would be I always look forward to. I know that that's when VMware does our webinars or the VMware Roundtable, Community Roundtable. If you've never made the Community Roundtable for VMware, that's on Wednesdays at noon Pacific time, I believe. So used to always be good lunchtime while I was having my lunch to kind of listen to see what's going on. So hopefully that'll work out for the Sydney community. So I think we'll try that out going forward. So we'll update the Zoom invite and the Twitch invite or a Twitch event to also reflect that. So again, completely open format. I see we're getting some more people join in here. So again, if you have any kind of questions or anything you wanted to see, we could definitely do that. Next week, like I said, I'll be at Dell Technology World, but we will be doing, the team will be doing, Robin will be hosting Team Candy. They're called Kim Delgado and Mandy Botsko Wilson on some CAS stuff. So our uh, cloud assembly, which is, for those that aren't aware of it, our VRA in the cloud. And so they're going to be going over a presentation on this and a demo on this, and hopefully be able to demo it working with VMware Cloud as well. That's kind of what we're looking for. So I won't be there, but that's what we're doing. The week after that, we're hopefully going to do something around Wavefront, potentially. We're still trying to get that in the schedule. And again, always open to other suggestions and other comments. So again, like I can keep reiterating, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop them in the chat on either side, the Zoom or the Twitch. We've been having quite a few people come in actually that are fairly new to VMware on the Twitch, which I find exciting. I do myself remember what it was once like to be an admin starting out in the world, not kind of knowing where to go. So we're always here for those kinds of topics. So I'm just kind of tootling around while we're seeing if any questions come in. On a high note, the VMware stock is doing fantastic as well. I think that's a indicator of the success we're having in a lot of the stuff we're doing on VMware Cloud on AWS. Like I said, there's a lot of anticipation about next week. May's looking to be busy for our team. I will be continuing to do the office hours. I know a few of our team is going to be on PTO, and there's a lot of other events kind of going on in and around the VMware campus for customers and all that kind of stuff. So it's a never-ending thing in the cloud biz, as I'm sure most of us are aware of. And thankfully, at the VMware Cloud, we take on a little bit of that onus for you. We do a lot of the work, so you guys don't have to. That's part of the service, and that's kind of what makes it so great. Like I said, I would have loved it as an admin back in my administrative days, not having to go into, as we talked about, the Americas office hours for those that weren't able to watch that recording. But me and Will Rodbard on our team were reminiscing on the days where you sat in a data center with high-speed fans blowing in your warm air in your face, the cold air being blown up from the floor, and the constant hum of the fans and the servers. And sometimes I reminisce about it, but most times I'm actually pretty glad that I don't have to do that anymore. And the customers that leverage VMware Cloud and AWS don't have to do that anymore either. Sit there and do cable management for hours on hours, or maybe that was just because I was a little OCD and like to ensure that all of my cabling looked very nice. That was kind of a major thing that I wanted to do. So I'm just trying to get some of our portal stuff fired up here. I think with everything in the browser world, sometimes there's a few hiccups there. We usually don't have this. A lot of times we're actually doing maintenance at this time, unfortunately, in our data centers where our stuff is hosted. Because it's a good time to do it, but not necessarily to demonstrate a lot of things. So one thing we covered last week, and I guess I probably want to cover it again here for everyone, and one of the complications that we kind of seem to have run into due to, so for those that have followed along kind of with the VMware Cloud since we launched this over a year ago now, a year and a half ago, we started out with, you had one SDDC size choice when you created an SDDC. And ours is unfortunately not a good demo because we have more options, unfortunately. But when you first were able to kick out an SDC with one of our first customers, you could kick out a 4 node. Okay, and I might be able to click this. So the early days when you came in here, all you had was number of hosts, and you had 1 or 4. Or sorry, actually, I just had 4. Right. So when you kicked out 4, we modified the vSAN policies and stuff like that to best reflect that storage type. Now, since then, we've scaled down to enable both a single node and to enable a 3 node. So 3 node being our smallest type, and you saw maybe a little bit of a preview of some things to come, perhaps on even smaller SDC sizes out the gate. But one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize, and again, I talked about this earlier this week, but I want to talk about it again, is that now once you go in there and you create a 3 node SDDC and you scale that from 3 to 4, right? We look after the vSAN policies around our stuff, management style stuff. But your default policy will not change from RAID 1 to RAID 5. Okay? Something we're looking into. And then again, when you go from 4 hosts to 6 hosts to file against our SLA, you have to be FTT2. And then you have the option of the RAID type you want, but a RAID 6 is probably the most storage and performance best option between all those options. This is stuff that you have to go in and do it, and we've had a long discussion around whether or not we should do that for you or not, and then we came to the conclusion that that's not a good thing for us to do, because there is some background overhead that occurs to obviously move all this data around, right? So you're taking from a RAID 1 and converting it to a RAID 6. There is a storage operation that needs to go in the background to do all this stuff. So we didn't want to just turn it on for everybody and bomb it across all the VMs, and we don't know exactly what your workloads are in there. You may have some high performing SQL servers or anything around those kinds of things, or maybe it's dev test and you don't care, right? So, but we leave that up to you. But I just want to emphasize that is up to you, right? So, if you're looking at your storage consumption, which for the most part seems to be the primary limiter or the primary defining metric for sizing, you can potentially save yourself a lot of storage by moving to RAID 5 from RAID 1, right? Or RAID 6 from RAID 1, right? So absolutely something we wanted to keep reiterating, that while we do manage the service, you guys, as the customers, as the partners, still manage your resources, the compute, the actual running workloads, those VMs that you've created that runs your applications, those are still on you. We'll provide for the infrastructure behind it, but you still need to back up those workloads. You still need to properly size those workloads. You still need to ensure that the storage profiles are correct. And you can have multiple storage profiles, right? So you can have storage profiles for VMs you don't care about. You know what? If they blow up and disappear, that whatever. I just want to maximize my storage capacity. So I'm going to go, no protection on this VM. Absolutely fine. You can do that, but you can't file against our SLA if that actually happens, right? So, or you could have on the opposite end of, this is the most important VM to me and I need this as available as possible. So I'm going to go the multi-cluster and have it synchronized across, or multi-AZ cluster and have it synchronized across both sides, which, doubles your storage impact. In some cases, could even go more than double, depending on your availability within the AZ. But that's what's important to you. So you can do that. You can do that by VM. You could actually do that by virtual disk. So, but this is all available to you. This is all open to you. It's just done in the vSAN profiles. If you're curious about that, want to know some more information, you definitely watch the Americas talk we did on Monday, because we kind of went through all of the settings and such to how to configure those types of things. Okay. But again, it's we always get these kinds of questions, and it's related to sometimes storage, sometimes it's related to network. How should we do these kinds of things? And again, while we manage this stuff for you, from an infrastructure standpoint, we don't manage your applications. We don't know what your applications are, right? We don't go to the level of identifying what every application you have is, what's running in that VM. No, we do not get into your business in that manner, right? We just provide the platform for which it to run on. Now, we have a lot of products, right? We have Wavefront, we got Lint, we got Network Insight, we have all of these all of these different products that could help you gain that insight for yourselves, but we don't look into that for you. We look after the infrastructure. Ultimately, how the applications perform is still on you, and we can assist and we can give guidance. We can definitely direct you in the right manner. There is a lot of great white papers out there around Oracle workloads, for example, on how to do the disk layouts for that. We have some fantastic documentation created by Michael Z and Persona and Dustin on our team that talk about how should you do your VPN topologies, and we could have conversations with you if you're connected to multiple AWS stuff and transfer. So we could give you all those kinds of guidances, but we get a lot of questions, and for those of you that didn't make, we just did a V forum on yesterday, actually. So we did a V forum, which is an online kind of VMUG kind of thing, where Pat did a keynote, and then I was the Q&A panel afterwards. And one of the kind of questions we got was, what's the best way to stretch layer 2 between VMware by on-prem and VMware Cloud? And hello, Mr. Dean Wolf. Today we're just kind of chatting. I'm just talking about the most important premise for everybody, and I reiterated it in that QA is just because you can stretch layer 2 doesn't mean you should. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that thought. The latency, how much latency your application can tolerate, how much bandwidth is maybe required to move things back and forth, right? So that's just because you can go into HCX and click a button and say extend layer 2, or you can go into VMware Cloud and when you're configuring the VPN and say, yes, this is a layer 2 stretch, doesn't mean you should. Right now, there are really good use cases for this. We have quite a number of customers that are moving stuff to the cloud that they don't want to change the IP address on. I get it. Perfectly reasonable, right? That's one of the big advantages of VMware Cloud is you can just move all that stuff live across the wire. Now you're going to have to live with, again, depending on how you do the migration, some of that pain. This is, like I said, this is where a lot of thinking comes in, and this is where we can help you. But ultimately, you need a kind of a fundamental understanding of your own applications about what they can tolerate. Because the other thing we get so a lot of times is well, this is slower. Okay, so you stretch layer 2 and you move half the application to VMware Cloud and you move the other half to on-prem. Yeah, of course it's going to be slower. There's a lot more latency in between the two. But is that okay? Right? Just because it's, gone from sub-millisecond to 7 millisecond, is that okay? That's probably okay, right? There's very few applications that actually can't handle that type of latency between them, depending on what it is, and you can help plan around that. Yes, it's definitely one of those considerations. And yes, Mr. Demon Wolf, we do use Office 365, so we are, how do we call it? Co-opetition with Microsoft. So we very much cooperate with them as much as we compete with them. So we use some of their products and they use some of our products. And we still can compete in the in the cloud space or in the virtualization space and in a lot of other spaces while still being friendly. We definitely have. Now we also are constantly internally changing our platform of choices for a lot of this stuff. But currently we're in Office 365. We also have our own email engine that we own, Boxer, which is definitely more of a mobile application. So that's wholly owned by VMware, which I use on my mobile phone. And we have a good suite around AirWatch, but Microsoft. So I like to think is VMware and Microsoft kind of have two very big commonalities. Is Microsoft could stay in business if everything else they've ever done besides Office fails. They have such a big presence in that Office space that they'll be there forever with Office. Everybody could switch to Linux. Their cloud could fail, and they would still make business off of Office products. Period. And we will always make money off of our virtualization platform, and that's just plain vSphere. Even though we give away copies for free, There are free trials, there are free versions of ESX. If we were to do nothing else besides the hypervisor, which we're not going to, I'm not putting that out there in any way, shape, or form. We're continuing to expand the expanse of our breadth of our offerings, but we could still be a company and be fairly profitable just selling vSphere. VMware Players, is that still around? I don't even know if VMware Player is still around. That's a really old one. It's become VM Workstation now. I don't think there's a free copy of that one. Oh, VMware Player is still around? Huh. I haven't used it in a very, 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 very long time. Yeah, well, that was one VM and one VM to kind of play. Now, what's funny is we've actually taken some of the technology that was in VMware Player, which became, in some cases, it was integrated into some of our Horizon virtual desktop offerings as well, with a way to deliver offline desktops and stuff. I also run Workstation, so I'm one of those strange computer nerds that actually doesn't have a data center in my house. I actually just run my lab in Workstation. I have a fairly robust PC at home with lots of memory and lots of flash storage, and it works for me. I am also spoiled that I have access to a large amount of physical hardware in our VMware Cloud data center to also do other testings. So I'm definitely spoiled in that regard. But yeah, so like I said, kind of going back to the main point is, we get, while the world of hybrid cloud is becoming real, the challenges in thereof is we're making things simpler from a technology standpoint, but that doesn't stop the thinking and the planning that you have to do anyway. Just, again, we can move live between your data center or your desktop in the cloud right now, right today. Is that a good idea? Maybe. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But that planning you need to plan that, and do a lot of thinking around it. And in some cases, it's just easier to redeploy in cloud or do a lift and shift. Now, the best way to doing these kind of migrations is to do them all at once. The more you can move over into the cloud and move the gateway over there, the better your performance is going to be. Plain and simple. Now, we understand that can be actually extremely difficult, especially for a lot of larger customers. To be able to move hundreds upon hundreds of VMs, and especially depending on your network layout, in a layer 2 segment, across the cloud, could be easy, could be hard, right? But while we continue to offer the technology, it still doesn't solve the need to do a lot of good research on what your applications are and what they do. Yeah, most of Microsoft's comes from enterprise and businesses. Ours, I think pretty much every company in the software space makes most of its money off of a smaller percentage of its customers, the really big spenders. I think if that holds true to even AWS, they probably make 80% of their money off of the Netflixes and all of those other type of companies. But we also don't want to ignore the smaller. That's why we have smaller sizes of VMware Cloud and AWS, and that's why, even to me, and I know a couple of companies are doing this, as opposed to kind of having a bunch of servers in a closet, that some guy comes and kind of maintains for you every other week, or every other month, or every other year. Why not just host your stuff in the cloud, right? There are services from other companies that could definitely, SaaS offerings, but, if you have a whole bunch of applications, you can just move them up to VMware Cloud and not have to, worry about the caretaker unplugging your servers at night, which I had that fun story the other day. So I'm actually going to, let's see, Akeem just joined, one of my esteemed teammates, so I'm promoting him to panels. Do you want to say hi, Akeem? I'm calling you out, so.
How's it going?
Good. It's good to have someone else here as opposed to me just kind of talking to myself. We're talking to Mr. Demon Wolf and Twitch here, so I was just kind of ranting about the just because you can doesn't mean you should type of things of, stretching layer 2 to the cloud all those joyous conversations that we usually get, and people trying to do things that fundamentally aren't good for applications just because they can. Um, so in some cases we're our own worst enemies when it comes to technology. And Mr. D. Wolf, you should really try out VMware Cloud because Azure's got its offerings. They definitely beat VMware out of the gate into the public cloud space and really started becoming competitors with AWS. But I think give us a year or two, and I think that conversation will be extremely different. I don't know. What do you think about that, Akeem?
No, I absolutely agree. In particular, I've dealt with a lot of customers in the past who are heavily .NET centric, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, but in our modern infrastructure, I totally believe in hybrid. You'll have some stuff on prem on VMware, some stuff across a smattering of clouds, and VMC and AWS is a easy transition for those on prem workloads to be pushed out into the cloud.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we're starting because it's the best place for us to start for our own customers and our own market. It's that easy to kind of lift and shift. But to Steve Wolf, we have the smaller sizes for the smaller developers that you pay by the hour if you want, right? So we got that kind of in, and we're continuing to involve our products, especially around our acquisition of Heptio that is driving into, I think we're calling it VMware Enterprise Kubernetes now, and we have our PKS offerings, our PCF offerings. That we're getting more into that space of we're not going to just be an infrastructure delivering company. There's a layer above that we're getting very involved in to be able to do similar things to that what Azure does with .NET, but or what, I guess better comparison is probably what Google does with their Google Cloud and Kubernetes. You could do on VMware Cloud with our enterprise Kubernetes offering.
Yeah, I think generally too the movement in the cloud industry is definitely the closer you are to the customer, the more value you can provide to your business, right? So as we move up the stack away from storage, compute, networking toward, Kubernetes, Dockerization, containerization of your apps to open up that flexibility to all your different lines of business, um, that's where you start providing a lot more value to your business. And so it's great to see not only a solution like VMC on AWS, but Pivotal Cloud Foundry services as well, hosted Kubernetes services, and then all the services on top of VMC that we can offer. Another great one would be Horizon desktops on top of VMC.
And absolutely, and I think that's why the market loved us so much is because we partnered with AWS. So we kind of got easy access into that, like you said, getting closer to the customers around the world, which we're continuing to expand. Every quarter we're adding more and more data centers, so we're really getting out there with our customers and where they are kind of following AWS's layout out there. And it's kind of a funny statement. It's true. I've been trying to spend my time, some of my time is getting as farther away from end users as I can. Um, but also ultimately at the end of the day, I know my job is to facilitate someone to come into their office, fire up something, with a picture of their dog on their desktop, open up a spreadsheet or get to an application that actually enables them to do whatever the business does. IT has never really been the one that we used to be seen as this huge, massive cost center that was just a necessary evil that everybody had to have. But I think with this, the DevOps kind of revolution you're talking about, it's really happening to deliver the applications the business needs and think about all of the other stuff afterwards. So the IT institution in a company is now becoming the enabler for business to go do stuff as opposed to, like you said, Akeem and Steve in the chat, is that nobody liked going to IT. No one liked going and requesting a server because this was I had to fill out all this paperwork, and 6 months later I might have something, and then that
Change control.
change control that led to what we affectionately call anyway. I'll say affectionately, quote unquote, server huggers. That's no. I bought that server. I'm not doing anything with it, but you can't take that away from me. You got to leave that in the data center because I purchased that thing and it took me 6 months to get it. I'm not giving it back to you. To now being, we're almost on the flip side now where they're almost provisioning too much because it's too easy. So we kind of have to institute those controls and stuff. And that's another place that VMware plays great in is all those monitoring and stuff and compliances around that, because we're getting more and more into that space of understanding it is ultimately about the application, and we're just trying to deliver ways to deliver that better and really making IT organizations and companies, and that's one of my favorite things to talk about, and I love seeing it in a lot of the companies we work with, that's gone from that, man, everybody hated dealing with us, to now we're going to them with ideas and they love us because we made their life easier in this regard, you know. And that's truly the good thing about I don't know if it's an IT revolution or evolution or whatever you want to call it, but the world we're in now, which will just continue to expand to more robust applications everywhere. Now, that being said, we've all run into somebody actually put this on Twitter the other day. Naran Evenchen, those in the VMware community might know of him, a good friend of mine. Put out a good line on Twitter yesterday. We no longer call them legacy apps. We call them vintage apps, which I don't know, gives a little bit more air of sophistication, I suppose. But there will always be those. I usually call them traditional apps because legacy makes them sound old, and in some cases they are old. But in a lot of cases they run a crucial aspect of the business that can't really be. It would be a significant amount of effort to redesign this application, and it works fine for what it does. But they just don't want it in their data center anymore. They don't want to manage the hardware behind it, or even house the VM on it. I remember in one of my early days working for a company, there was an old NT4 server that was literally on desktop hardware. That was the PDC, and for those that are not old enough to remember what that is, but the primary domain controller in an NT4 domain that a lot of these applications that were developed authenticated against. And nobody wanted to even look at this desktop. They're afraid that if that thing went offline, it broke all these applications. It hasn't been able to be successfully backed up for months because of some errors or something. And I was a guy that was brave enough to actually virtualize the thing. And this is back in the day when you had to actually put a CD in the CD drive. So that for those, again, that are not old enough, that's the predecessor to the DVD that was the first disc type media, I guess, of its laser of its variety, I suppose, not counting like laser discs that were like 18 feet wide. Mounted in, actually reboot the thing and cross my fingers that it booted and virtualized it. But that just enabled the world, right? Because now no longer did everybody worry about that piece, right? And now we've kind of taken that and evolved it almost even to the data center, right? Because I don't know how much experience everybody has out there in the data center world, but a lot of companies we had, this rickshaw kind of rickety co-location that was like in a closet in some other building that the business ran, or hosted in somebody else's data center, but you could take a stick and turn off all of the servers in the guy's cage next to you, or just one day we came in and there was a water leak in this room that was supposed to be dev test, and turned out to be the front page web page for an e-commerce business. So now we've got to even taken that ability now to just virtualize off that old hardware to now not worrying about all of these data centers or these closets or these colos or remote offices or whatever where these servers might actually be sitting, and move them into the cloud. Right? You don't have to worry about somebody walking out with a server. You don't have to worry about these hardware failures or water leaks or any of those other things that kind of keep some people up late at night because they have to run this application out there somewhere. And now I can move to the cloud, and I think that's kind of almost that next evolution of detaching further from that physical boundary. Now, again, this runs on physical hardware, so that, it runs in a region in AWS, but there's a lot of things you can do to run above it. But now that's being handled by the application space to replicate above that. But we're really enabling that world of you don't have to, stay laying awake at night worrying about whether or not that hurricane is going to take out this data center, or this is going to flood again like it does every year, during the spring thaw. Because I've had customers like that too. So, I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Akeem? I know I've been kind of rambling.
No, I completely agree. I'll also add on, since we're in the APJ hours. If anybody out there happens to speak Japanese, I'm fluent as well. Feel free to ask questions.
Oh, you're another one. All right. I'd like to see you and Jason have a conversation one day, maybe. So we just talked about that. So that was one of the feedbacks we got for the timing. Is we're going to move it. I think I talked about before you joined in. We're going to move this time back a couple hours, which will then make it easier for those in Japan to make it and those in India to make it as well. Because I know it's a little early. I think it's 7 a.m. in Japan, or 7:35 a.m.
8:30 a.m. Yeah.
It's 8:30 a.m. So it's a little bit early for them, and it'd be 7:30 in, or I guess it'd be a few hours earlier. It's like 6:30, I think, in Bangalore, or I guess 6, because they're a weird half hour off.
Right.
So I don't know if they'd be 7 or 6. Anyway, by the way, when I was in Bangalore, my phone never adjusted to that half hour. It wouldn't automatically detect that one. I actually had to program that in. Anyway.
Show up to meetings half an hour later.
No, it was just the weirdest thing ever. It got the time zone, kinda. It just didn't do the half hour. And the only other place I know that does that is Newfoundland in Canada. They have a weird half hour time, which I think is the silliest idea ever. Washington State's actually trying to pass a law now where we don't we have a permanent daylight savings time, so we no longer do the clock back and forth thing, which is kind of a remnant of days gone by. I remember doing a large project when the U.S. Congress decided to change the days that the spring forward and fall back for time happened, and all of the work that I had to do around that. I don't necessarily think we need to do that anyway. Anyway, completely side tangent, but yes, we are looking at moving this time a little bit. Great to know that you are a fluent Japanese speaker, because I know that not necessarily a lot of the people that attend in that region. We were thinking about actually even having a separate call for Japan, just because we understand that English is not as widely spoken there as it is obviously in Sydney, although they kind of debatably speak English, and in Bangalore, especially for those in the IT, all speak English, but it's not quite as common in Japan, is my understanding. That's the one place I've yet to go with VMware that I've been dying to do. So,
yeah. A side note there, actually, in 5 days we'll have a new emperor and a new era called Reiwa.
Well, there you go. That is not something I knew.
Once the emperor changes, you want to talk about some IT work that has to be done. A lot of their old systems, especially accounting systems, were put into the Japanese calendar, which is based on the emperor at the time. So they have to take a week off to remint all forms, update all IT systems to accommodate the new characters for the new era, which is a fascinating exercise.
Well, that is, yeah, that's interesting. I remember watching a documentary way back when around them trying to create keyboards for the Japanese language. Which is kind of funny because the Japanese are so crucial and innovative in the computer world, but it was incredibly difficult for them to have their own keyboards in their language. Same with the Chinese, because of the way the character system works, which I still don't quite fully understand. I barely have a grasp on English. I'm one of those horrible people that only speaks English. Actually, I speak a moderate amount of French, but it's Canadian French, which is pretty much useless in the rest of the world, unfortunately. Especially when I went to Paris, they did not like my French. But yeah, anyway. A little bit of a tangent there, but always a good conversation. Again, feel free to ask questions or chat. Mr. Demon Wolf is back. He was at our America's Hours earlier. Good the conversation. I used to run TeamSpeak servers on virtual private servers, which I don't even know if anybody runs TeamSpeak anymore. Or sorry, yeah, TeamSpeak. I think everybody runs Discord now. It's the evolution of things. Now nobody uses WebEx anymore. It's all Zoom. Yeah, it's tough to keep up in this world of rapid development. I remember a good presentation that Ahmad Benjamin used to be on his team, and I'm actually going to be working with him again here shortly. Put together slides around, here's what everybody was talking about 2 years ago. Here's what everybody was talking about a year ago, and here's what everybody's talking about today. So I think I made the right career choice several years ago when I said, when I was in university to be a programmer, saying, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to be a programmer. Because the amount of tools, and I know it's a great enabler to them, and I know it makes their lives easier in a lot of ways, but I mean, it's a constant evolution of, today it's Docker, then it was Kubernetes, Redshift. I mean, you just keep naming it. It's buzzword bingo. And that's just going to continue to happen. I think some of it will enterprise up. I think Kubernetes is starting to go through that enterprise world because, and I think smartly, because one of the big things that happened to like OpenStack was it almost stuck too much to its open source roots and had too many branches and too many differentiations between the branches that it really kind of killed itself by being too open. And I know it's not the most popular thing in the world to try to commercialize and enterprise everything. It does actually kind of, in a manner, standardize anyway the tool set so that your stuff at least works. And Kubernetes is doing a very good job of that, and everybody's kind of sticking to the open source way of doing things as opposed to, like I said, OpenStack just became 30 different varieties from everybody, and we even have our own OpenStack, but we kind of kept to the open source and then just used our vCenter and our vSphere hosts underneath it to provide a better level of service to the OpenStack. But I'm sure that'll happen again. We're already seeing the fighting between some competing runtime engines and but I think, like I said, when the enterprises kind of get involved with the VMwares and the AWSs and the Googles kind of decide on, all right, this is the way we're going to go forward, it's probably a good way of sticking with things. But yeah, so I've been talking for a lot. Like I said, Akeem, I know you're new to the team. Is there any kind of first impressions you've had around the service? Anything that surprised you? Anything that you're excited about?
Yeah, so a mini background. I was previously a system engineer on vCloud Air, which was another launch of VMware's into the cloud. And so the biggest thing that I've noticed is just the ease of use of the entire platform. Um, it is when all the pieces come together, whether you're delving through hybrid cloud extension or setting up SRM or deploying an SDDC. The UIs are beautiful. It's modern. It's fast, and everything just seems to work. And that's been I guess, a large surprise from my side of the house. Architecturally, I'm actually super impressed as well that they've sort of limited certain pieces of functionality. So, because we provide this as a service to our customers, we lock down, the appliances for vCenter, and you're not allowed to, go SSH in the ESX host, sort of removing all of that burden of, managing an entire VMware cluster. They've just made that in a way that's really easily consumable. And that's been really great to see. Another thing would be multilingual support. So I've been playing around with, adjusting my profile and into different languages and to see, full UTF-8 support for multiple languages across.
So I haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, I actually have it up if you want me to share my screen.
Yeah, maybe I'll share your screen here. I'll stop my share and let
Given
you
control.
Let you go for it here. I'll move our Zoom window in here. The most I've done lately is Mr. Demon Wolf made me enable dark mode in vCenter, and I did not like that.
No.
Dark mode on the portal itself is okay. Not my favorite, but I didn't even actually know there was a dark mode in the vCenter itself. Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So this is the Japanese-based UI. And this is actually, in the programming world, this is one of the most arduous tasks that someone asks you, right? You build an entire beautiful front end UI, and then they're like, "Hey, go make that support every language on the sun. Go."
Yeah, it's funny to me that there are still certain words that apparently don't translate. Like apparently CPU, I guess, is just understood or.
Yeah. So in the context of Japanese, this is actually really funny. So this word right here, you can probably guess, is memory.
Yeah.
Is actually how you say it. Storage. Storage. So storage. Most of the words in Japanese are borrowed from English when it comes to, um, I guess, IT and infrastructure, right?
Yeah, no, I've noticed that with so watching some other presentations and stuff in other languages has always kind of cracked me up. You could pick out the VMware and vCenter Server and random product names in there. But yeah, I have never actually seen this, so this is actually
Yeah. So
really
actually, if you
cool.
come up here to your name, and I guess I should flip this back to English here. We are in my account. 環境設定.
So I guess if it's set this way, you're in real big trouble if you can't kind of figure out your way out of it.
Gotta go talk to a native here.
Yeah.
Flip it back to English here. So over
Oh,
here in my account, in preferences, this is actually super interesting because you can have a regional format that is different from your language.
Oh, what options do we have in there for English? Do we have like Great
So
Britain?
you have, for English,
Yeah.
it's only English.
No, for the regional format, do we have?
So United States, United Kingdom.
Well, I should tell Will and Aiden on our team of the UK. Maybe it puts the S into the virtualization somewhere.
Virtualization,
Yeah.
as they call it. So yeah, I'm surprised to see in here, right? German, Korean. This is Putonghua, standard Mandarin Chinese. This is the simplified Chinese, English, le français, and Spanish as well.
Wow. Yeah. So I know that we had been doing a lot of this stuff, but obviously, as a native English speaker, I'd never kind of actually gone into there to check that out. So that's actually fantastic. So, yeah, especially for the APJ region to know that you could definitely get at least looks like the majority of your interface, within the language that you prefer. Which is good because I know that usually regionalization is kind of one of or localization, I suppose, is one of the later tasks we do. But I guess because of the world we now live in, it's good to do that. But that's actually very very interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm hoping. We have architects all over the world, right? Some of them who speak German as well, to sort of flip it over into German. But I've noticed in most other countries, folks in IT are used to English enough, and so they usually just keep it in English because that's.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, I've been all around the world, and I've always delivered in English, and always had them converse with me in English. So I've been spoiled in that manner, and perhaps not as very worldly of me. But we do have a German speaker on our team, though. But oddly enough, he's actually Australian.
Oh.
So, which is interesting to me, but yeah. So there's localization in the vSphere client. I take it as well.
Yeah, I usually don't play with that too much here. I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, it could be in our preferences there. Yeah, don't hit that switch theme button. It's very not nice.
So it looks like they have parity.
Yeah. Okay.
With the vCenter HTML5 UI here, so.
Yeah, that's good.
Over. Reload. There you go.
Wow.
You have a. Yes.
I'd be interested to see how long I could, how effectively I could use this. I mean, I guess all of this stuff is all in English, and I think I know the interface well enough to probably muddle my way through it as long as they didn't move any of the tabs around.
No, they're all the same. This is, settings, data center, hosts, virtual machines, all that fun stuff.
Well,
You can actually change, we support the full character set to name your infrastructure in a foreign language as well. So
wow.
it's actually really great to see, between VMC and AWS, the entire UI is fully localized to all 6 of those languages.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad you joined and walked us through this. It's like I said, stuff I'd heard about. I'd never actually seen myself.
Yeah,
because I would have got lost in it and not been able to get myself out of it. But yeah, that's definitely good to know, especially for this particular podcast as well.
Looks like not all the services. I was just playing with.
Yeah, just to see if which ones did and didn't. I'm assuming
in English, but the base service can be translated.
Yeah, I'm assuming most of the services independently probably have their own localization efforts as well going. So there's probably some in there that have it enabled and some that are still working on it. Because as you said, I don't think it's as simple as just taking the direct translation of something and throwing it in there.
No, it's
there's probably a lot more to it. But yeah, now that I know I can do that, I'll see how many guys leave their consoles open so I can change that on them. But yeah, that was good. Thank you. And it was good, the impression as well. It's always good to see things through the fresh eyes. I mean, that's one of the things, one of the first comments I remember getting from an admin on the platform was, so how do I root into the host? Well, why do you want to root into the host? Well, I always root into the host. Well, but why do you root into the host? Well, just to make sure things are running okay. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. We worry about that. Oh, so I can't root into the host. I don't know if I like this. Well, again, why do you need to root into the host? So we have the cyclical type conversation, and it to me it kind of goes, back to the, a little bit of the server hugging days of, well, I want to be able to be admin in vCenter. Well, why? So we do abstract a lot of that away. We do give everybody essentially access to everything you need to do. It's just a level lower. The way I communicate to a lot of customers is just think of the compute resource pool as your new vCenter level. So you can do everything you want in there and underneath there for VMs and resources and everything you want, but you just can't do it at the cluster level or even at the host level. So just kind of just change your frame of thinking down to this isn't my new route. And you'll find that it doesn't really come up all that often. And since then, I haven't heard the same thing from him. He loves using the system and says it's a lot easier, like you said, than what he was used to before. And and I can't reiterate enough, a lot of times too, is the fantastic support feature. And I still don't know why we don't put our own support team into these default pictures. I mean, they come up when you actually click into it, but they're not part of the default image set. They are there. But yeah, you run into any kind of problem. This is as easy as support is. I mean, I could probably say hi to David, but I didn't. He might be busy actually helping customers. I don't want to distract him from actually doing work. I was actually in Vegas with Swathi, VMworld. I say VMworld, and I think I met Aaron, but I'm not sure. So those are all members of our team that work on support. Fantastic, and they're just that one click away. Like I said, back in my day, if I could have got around, finding the 800 number and dialing the 800 number and hitting the right options and trying to remember my accounts and everything, and just went in and just click support. Somebody hit chat instantaneously. Oh man, that would have been phenomenal. So anyway, we've got about 5 minutes left in our allotted time. Again, if there's any kind of questions out there, if anybody wants to see anything else in the Japanese language or quiz Akeem on his Japanese language skills, feel free to.
Well, I don't know if I signed up for that.
And like I said, next week is going to be the official webinar, and that's going to be in the Americas time zone. So unfortunately for those of you in APJ, that's going to be in the middle of your night on Cloud Assembly. So everything that we do goes up on our YouTube. So I went over this last week for everybody, but there is our VMware Cloud YouTube channel where we put everything up there. Like this is a lot more of the chat and demoing off of we had for storage profiles in the Americas one. The EMEA guys went over some of the vCenter tagging, VMC tagging, anti-affinity rules, and some API stuff. If you're interested in that, that's up there. Last week we did a troubleshooting video that Mohit on our team did, which was fantastic. 54 views as of last week. So if you missed this stuff, feel free absolutely to consume it on our YouTube page. And you can even leave comments in there. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I've talked a lot today. This is the end of my day in the Americas here. But so there's a lot of content out here that I could definitely check out. You have questions, you can either comment on the video and I'll get to it, or email us at cloudcs@vmware.com if there's any questions or anything you want to see, or tweet at me at vcloudmatt. I don't know if I asked you, Akeem, do you have a Twitter?
I do have a Twitter handle. It's Blue Zytrix.
Blue Zytrix. Okay. You might have to spell that out for those at home.
BLUZYTRIX.
Oh, okay.
I'll make sure to add it so when I pop on, you can.
Yeah, I'll actually, if you remember to maybe email it to me, I can create the widget that goes onto our stream, so it'll be up there. So tweet at him, tweet at me at vcloudmatt. We'll respond to it. Any ideas, any suggestions, any questions, we'll get to it. We'll try to do videos on it in the future. We're trying to get as much content and as interactive out as we can, especially since we're expanding quite rapidly into the APJ region. We know a lot of the APJ companies out there and customers are really anxious and interested in getting involved in it and getting their hands on it. Absolutely reach out to us at any time. Or we'll always be back here. Not this same time. We're going to shift it probably at least an hour, maybe 2 hours later. So you'll see that reflected in the events page. If you follow us on Twitch, you'll just get you can sign up for a notification when we go live. I appreciate all of the interactivity, especially Mr. Dumove coming in and chatting with us again. So there's lots of ways you can get notifications. You can get on the Zoom invite, which will put a notification in your calendar and stuff like that, and you can jump in here as well and chat with us. So lots of chances to get interactive with us. We're here to ensure that you can have those opportunities, and I won't speak for Akeem, but I love talking about this stuff, and I love talking to customers. I hope Akeem does as well.
Oh, I definitely do. I wouldn't be here otherwise.
Okay. I appreciate Akeem for coming out. Gave me something to talk about and showed me something new that I actually hadn't seen myself, which is fantastic. So I appreciate that. I appreciate some of our CSN team actually coming out as well and attending. Like I said, we appreciate everybody's time. We know how time is important to everybody and how valuable it is, and we appreciate it spending with us. So with that, I'm going to close out the stream. Like I said, if you happen to be around Dell Technology World next week, come see me in the Cloud City booth. And then if not, I will be back the week after. In the meantime, we'll have some other people filling in for these, because we like I said, we do these every week. Tuesday we do Americas, Wednesday we do EMEA, and Thursdays we do APJ. So again, feel free to come out at any time. Any closing remarks, Akeem?
No, I'm definitely looking forward to hopping on these and contributing a lot more. Hopefully, I have a passion for programming, particular Golang, so I'm hoping to hit some of that API and programmatic stuff here in the future, as well as pitch in where I can with those folks who might also speak Japanese.
Perfect. Sounds good, and I will definitely hit you up to contribute. So with that, I hope everybody has a good day in the APJ region, and for those of us in the Americas still watching, a good night, and I'll talk to everybody in a couple weeks. Thank you very much.
Cheers.